Coffee Monday is more than a podcast. It's a movement to reshape the way we approach Mondays and the week ahead. It's about embracing the reality that work doesn't have to dominate our lives. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and a cup of motivation connect. Filmed and recorded in California's Central Valley, join me, your host, Ray Pardini-Matson, as I invite thriving professionals to share their stories of how they're crafting a life that's both vibrant and balanced. We're both Italian, but we don't look Italian.
Not at all. Blonde and...
Blonde. Okay, so is it Ceroni?
Ceroni.
Yes. So Tisha Cerioni-Zafferano.
Correct.
I love that.
Yes, nice and long.
I
mouthful.
love it. Yeah. And you kept your last name. I love that for you.
I did, yeah. We have a small family, and our name is kind of coming to an end, and so I wanted to keep it as a middle name, and my husband was good with it, so
love that.
we kept it.
Yeah, I did the same. Although all Pardinis are somehow related, I feel like I still wanted to keep it, you know?
Yeah.
I get that.
It was special to me, and I really wanted it hyphenated for that actually be my last name. And then as we've been married for years, it's kind of just dropped off, but it's still there. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and it's an honor.
Thank you. I'm excited. I feel like we have so much to talk about.
Me too.
And our paths have crossed over the years through social and just in the fitness, health, and wellness space. And I'm just honored to have you here as an expert and get to know more about your story, because I feel like the people that are following you now know Tisha now, right?
Yes,
and so tell me about upbringing and kind of what life was like before you entered the fitness space.
Yeah, so right out of college, you're always taught, go to college, get your degree, and go work for someone. My father did own his own business, so that entrepreneur types, space is definitely something that's been a part of me. But at the same time, it was very much about you go to school, graduate, and you go work for someone. And so I did right out of the gate. I went into sales, and I loved it. I loved the kind of high of, getting new clients and constantly challenging yourself to grow. And I worked for the same company for 14 years. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, long
Right
time.
out of college.
Right out of college.
I have a friend that's in a similar situation.
Okay.
12 or 14 years she's been there, first job out of college, and worked her way up. So I imagine yours was a similar situation.
Did the same thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it was a startup company, so there was a passion for it because I kind of started with them from the ground up. And so even though it wasn't something that I was passionate about, there was an emotional connection to the company, and I think that's why I was able to stay for so long. And like you said, worked your way up, and even though I was always in sales, and yes, the title changed a little bit as we went along, but the income kept changing, and so I got really comfortable, and I loved the people that I worked with, but fitness was always a passion, and so I've been in the fitness industry for over 15 years, and it was always like a little side nugget for me that I would do.
Your passion,
yes,
really, right?
I would do. Sometimes I teach classes before work and sometimes after, and it was always something that filled my cup after coming out of the corporate space. So I lived that life for, like I said, over 14 years, and struggled with it a little bit because I was starting to feel a little robotic with it, and it wasn't really fueling me. And then in 2020, life flipped upside down. So the choice that I had been wrestling with, do I change career paths and take less pay, and what does life look like when we do that, and all the fear of the unknown, that decision was made for me. I lost everything overnight, lost income, no severance, my car payment, cell phone, laptop, you name it.
So just without warning, because of COVID, essentially budget cuts.
No foul to the company. Yeah, it was just the industry was severely impacted, and life was impacted.
Right.
But that day that I received the phone call, it was March 31st of 2020. I felt this sigh of relief, even though I was scared out of my mind, thinking, high earner, what does this look like for my husband and I?
And just being there for so many years.
Yeah. It was a hard loss. And I think everyone was navigating in that space at the time, and just trying to get through it. But the way it was handled was a little challenging too, from an, emotional connection from being with these people for so long. And my husband, I remember I can see him I hung up the phone and he says, everything's gonna be fine.
Aww,
and so that is what launched me into this space. And so I think what I'm so thankful for, and what I would encourage anybody out there that's maybe wrestling with their career choices, if you do have a passion for something and it is maybe a creative outlet, it's challenging when schedules are busy and hard, and you're trying to create space for something that might not be bringing in necessarily a ton of income. But I'm so thankful that I did that, because it helped. I had already immersed myself in the fitness industry for over 15 years, and so it
sounds like you were already naturally drawn to that, right?
Totally. Yeah.
It was almost like, to your point, the choice was made for you.
The choice was made for me, and it's been, honestly, it has been the biggest blessing.
Seems like it.
I think we get so caught up in titles and income and, this, I kind of call it like a false sense of security. Like, I felt secure because I had been with this company for so long and made great money, and I had some great perks, and I never in a million years thought that, anything like that would happen. And it's not just to go out in the fear of like, oh, you're replaceable. But at the end of the day, I literally just had this talk with my friend in a very similar situation. Just that, I mean, at the end of the day, the more corporate structure, as big as the company may be, or small or personalized or not, like, it is a different culture. And at some point, like, I don't want to say you're just a number, because you're not, but like, also, it's just different, right? Well, and as a business owner yourself, it's like you are in business to create impact and make money. Right?
Exactly.
So I think from a business perspective, where I could separate myself from the way that all went down is, you're in business to make money. If I was in this position, I would be having to make the same challenging decisions to make those cuts to survive. And so I think, that learning lesson and all of that too is, yes, we like nice things. Money is great. You want to make a nice living, and it's excellent to have that drive to constantly want to do better. But like, what is really important?
And your situation, and I've been through other things in my life too, have led me, like, sometimes the really hard stuff leads you to the best.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like that's a perfect example of that. Like, obviously not ideal.
Right.
I mean, no warning, no severance, like nothing. But it obviously has changed your life for the better, it sounds
100%.
like. And it's hard to see that in the moment, because you were probably shocked / you said kind of relieved / grieving, all the things. Things. So you got the call. The call. We all remember some call with some, situation. And so, like, what was after that? Did you take a few months off? Did you dive right into, like, like, what did that look like for you?
So, interesting. I had been approached by a friend of mine to look into, you've heard of Arbonne, right? Direct marketing. Again, something that I poo-pooed, because I was taught you go corporate. Like, direct sales is, it's not good enough. And so with that being said, I looked at what was happening. No interviews, no jobs opening. This is in literally the initial 4 weeks of COVID. So I took that opportunity, and I'm like, well, shoot. Worst case, I try it and I run with it and keep looking, if there's something that piques my interest for a job. And so I just took off with it. And I went way up to 3rd level regional vice president and made a great living with it, and met a ton of great people, and incorporated the fitness piece with it. And I think what Arbonne served, and I'm still active in it, the fitness piece is definitely my number one priority. But I think what Arbonne served for me in that moment was the transition of working in corporate, reporting to an office, traveling, setting up meetings. And so in order to change from 14 years of doing that to then going and being in a gym all day, I don't think that transition would have naturally happened out of the gate. So, and I found myself in that initial, year, putting myself in front of a computer, like trying to grind like I did at my last job. And the reality finally sunk in, like, you don't have to do this anymore.
You don't have to do
But I was so trained and so, in the same routine and schedule that I had done for so long that I feel like I had to have that transition looking back now.
Right. And that
So,
makes sense. And I feel like it probably reframed your whole thought on working in general, right? Like, I feel like now there's so many modern ways to, flex your schedule and make an income.
Right.
And I mean, even with social media,
100%. Yeah.
like the opportunities for flexibility and creativity and income.
Right.
Through those efforts.
Right.
So that makes so much sense when you put it that way. I knew you were involved with Arbonne.
Yes.
I'm very familiar. One of my best friends from college is very invested in the company and does very well. So I've been familiar for years, and I love their mission and their products and all the things. Yeah. So that seems great and a natural fit with your fitness background, right?
Yeah, it was. I just, I think I had this realization of like, wow, you're just kind of repeating the same thing, like things that you were complaining about. And not that Arbonne was the same, but I was treating it the same. And so to get myself out of that kind of grind that I felt like I was forcing myself, no one else was doing it. I was doing it to myself.
Right.
I started incorporating, we have so many health and wellness products. And so I started incorporating, free wellness events where we could come and get a taste for a workout with me, sample some of the products, and started merging and blending both of them a little bit more.
Love it.
And then that was just the reality. I had 3 people around this transition of, that just reached out to me and said, if you ever do one-on-one training, please let me know.
Really?
So here comes the next sign, right? I mean, this was all within less than 30 days. 3 totally different people.
Chills.
Like 2 that I crossed paths with, one of my mentors, Dina Juve, who was, owner in the fitness space. Yes. And another just friend and random. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is time. This is time. So another thing I think Arbonne set me up for was letting go of judgment. What do people think of you? We were working, you were in this, what looked like a great career with a fancy little title and making great money, and then this isn't good enough, but really at the end of the day, so I think that transition of working through that process of then going and working for a direct sales marketing company that, a lot of people, I judged heavily before I did it. I think all of those things set me up to get where I needed to be to successfully launch a fitness business with zero worry. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, if I don't like it, I pivot. And so I think all of that leading up
Love that.
allowed me to.
And you were also, sounds like, in a position where it's like you have nothing to lose at this point. Like,
lose.
not actually.
Well, yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's just like you were in that mindset of just like, you said it. You're like, why not? Like, and what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work? Well, been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you pivot and you change. And if you're not enjoying it, and I think I kept it quiet for about 8 months.
The fact that
fitness, I wanted to make sure that it was something that I could do day in and day out, and was I really enjoying it, because I had already kind of done that with Arbonne. I did it.
Right.
Things I loved about it, but was it really fueling my cup every day? In some ways, yeah, but something was still lacking. And so just kind of that little test phase of...
So I feel like we have a very similar perspective on the whole title thing.
Okay.
And this is probably not a very unpopular opinion. So sorry in advance for any, I don't mean to offend anybody.
Yes.
But I do feel that you said it perfectly, that people are so hung up on title. And I actually could care less about the title thing.
No, I
but
felt the same
so
way.
many people care. And how do you... kind of meet them in the middle a little bit. I mean, at least for me, like even putting titles together for job descriptions and promotions, like naturally that makes sense, right? You go from, manager to director to senior director to VP, all the things. Right. Like, I get it. I know that it's important to people, but like, I don't care. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's something that just... out of college was obviously years ago, so it's like I don't know where that
maybe it's our society
from. Our society, just like I think it is shifting, like you said, with the onset of social media and influencers, and you see these young kids that have developed these massive brands all from, you know, sharing a recipe online, and now they've got branded this, they've got their podcast, and I think it's definitely shifting. But I remember thinking that, you know, national account executive, Arbonne sales,
Right.
personal trainer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I look at that, like that doesn't have that national, like it just doesn't have, and that again,
Well, it's your own thing. Think about it, right? You're
Right.
introducing yourself to people. Tisha, what do you do?
that's the difference.
It's your own thing.
Yeah, it's your confidence.
It's your,
You know, and am I making more impact, do I believe, in this role than I was? Absolutely.
I
you
mean,
know,
I don't know
the,
what you did
and
before.
the impact
I didn't know
that
you
I
in
want to
that
make.
life, but I feel like I would say absolutely, just from knowing you in the past few years. You know? Wow,
So,
that feels good.
it does feel good, but I
Right?
think you're right. It is how we look at things, and but with the pressure of society, I think we do. You know.
So you were kind of teaching classes for other studios, maybe, or
Yes.
group sort of settings.
Yeah, I still do.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then I know this, and man, oh man, best and worst class in town. I'm just kidding. It's the best. Sore for days.
Sore for days.
But so there's that aspect of your
Yes.
business. Arbonne obviously kind of feels like it was the bridge to kind of
Yes.
encourage you to move forward with the health and wellness and fitness space,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so you said within 30 days you had 3 separate people,
Yes.
totally unrelated, be like, so if you ever do
you
one-on-ones,
ever- yes.
privates, semi-privates, whatever that looks like, let me know.
Yeah.
So when did you pull the trigger and be like, okay, I'm going to do
We're
that?
ready.
How did that? Yeah.
It was probably where are we? 2024. So it was the beginning of 2023. I decided to really start branding the gym and bringing in.
Okay.
You know, my theme is it's pink and black, and it's
Love
women heavily. I did train. I did a program with a guy, and I loved it. It just, I'm like, it just doesn't hit the same,
Yeah.
you know? And I think when I look at kind of my method and how I train, it's really just a mix of things that I've done over the 15 years with different mentors and what feels best in my body. And it really, that caters to women. You know, I'm a female's body, and I know what works and what feels good. And so once that settled and I worked through that part, then I started kind of branding and putting the marketing out there in terms of really just, you know, it's a small business, and word of mouth is
Isn't referral all that anybody can
that's
ask
all I
for,
really want.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Isn't that the best?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're only one person. You only have so much time, which I
Yes.
really want to get to,
Yes,
to the growth
yes.
piece of that.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, one thing that I've really loved about how you've branded yourself and just in getting to know you is the full body
Yes.
picture.
Yes.
Mind, body, spirit,
Fitness, yeah.
fitness,
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's not, you don't see that.
Yeah.
It's very unique.
So in my experience, there's been a phase, and not necessarily, you know, when I'm just in my fitness, it's always been a part of my life. So this is when I'm working in corporate, but I mean, I was dialed in with nutrition, and I was dialed in with consistent workouts. And yes, my body was changing, but I was in a very restrictive place and kind of using that as a sense of control, and it ended up with a eating disorder. And what I realized in that moment, and after 8 months of a lot of therapy,
I was gonna say,
working through that, is my mind was not in a good place. I was making a ton of progress, but I was constantly fueling myself with negative comments every day. You know, stepping on a scale and being unhappy with what I saw, and then I would put this pressure and this weight back on me. And so the mind-body connection, when we think if they are not all cohesively working together, your results, your experience, how you feel is going to be affected.
Right.
And that's a perfect example of nutrition and fitness and the two key pieces, but yet I was miserable in my head and constantly putting negative energy into my body, and therefore my body started responding differently.
Right.
You know, it starts shutting down. Lost my cycle. It just, you know.
I mean, it is the power of the mind is so tremendously powerful.
Kind of like the title thing we were talking
Oh,
about.
no, you're so right.
Yeah,
like
it's
full
the same.
circle. And
yeah.
I know we've talked about this, you know, just in taking a more holistic and kind of like basic approach to our health. But like, there's also something to be said about that, right?
Yeah.
Like bringing it back to the basics and how much your mind, stress, lack of sleep, those
Yep.
sorts of things can
Yeah.
affect everything.
Yeah. Yes, because
Wow,
in those
so-
stressful moments, when you are not in the right headspace, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
your sleep is affected. All the other things are affected. Stress is a killer. And so it all affects, so it's that time of, you do a workout and mentally most people get a release, right? Endorphins are kicking, you feel better. But if you're not following up with the other stuff, and whether for me, what that looks like is social time, but it
Okay.
also looks like time alone.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes after my morning block with clients, I just need to go and
Just,
if I don't do that,
decompress.
it's like this edginess starts to come in, so, and that's another example of kind of that staying connected internally with yourself and what do you need,
So you obviously have put a lot of work in physically and mentally and in all the ways, right? So in putting that work in from a mental perspective, how do you support your clients in those efforts, right? Like you're working on yourself daily. We all are.
Yeah.
But how do you translate that into your practices? Like, do you encourage them as you're working, like what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. I think, when you're working with 40 plus women every week, you see the same patterns, right? A lot of stuff I can see myself in. And I think when I see the frustration or the negativity, I think naturally one of the best ways is I relate. I've been there. You know what? I felt that way today or last week or whatever it is, and then give suggestions on what work. I think what's most important to us, sometimes I just need to let them talk.
Listen,
Right?
You're there to listen.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why the breaks come in midday when I'm like, ooh, okay, because sometimes
that makes sense.
it's easier,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, for you too as well,
For
where you can
sure.
detach from certain things. And then there's some days and conversations and things that hit a little different or we don't detach and, have good boundaries sometimes. And so that's been a learning
I bet.
curve
I
with
bet.
this type of, because you're on your feet all day, you're talking, you're listening, you're doing all the things, and it's just
Right.
different than what I was used to.
I bet. So, yeah.
but I think
you do the workouts sometimes.
some of them, some of them.
I was like, wow, that's
I'll
impressive.
jump in sometimes. It's where I get my workout in some days.
Yeah.
Schedules get a little wonky sometimes,
Yeah.
but
So you kind of feel the energy of the women. Like you can sense like, okay.
And I think even from as long as I can remember, that's like, I think it's one of the best gifts I have is the ability to like read people and energy. That might come from both of my parents. They're recovering, and being in that type of space, I think you learn to read energy in people
For sure.
well.
Yeah.
And so it's a gift, and sometimes it's a curse.
Right.
Because I can
Right.
feel, and so making sure I don't absorb that energy into
Right.
my own body. And when I first started this, there was a couple situations where we had to take a little break
I'm sure.
from
I'm
a couple
sure.
clients because I'm like, I don't
You're like,
think
I
this
don't-
timing
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
for both of us.
Right.
Um,
And being conscious of that, right? One of the important but hard lessons of being a business owner and
Yes.
practicing what
yeah.
you do, right?
Yeah, because my job is to motivate, be there consistently for you and work through the challenges. But if you're not willing to do the work, we need a little time out.
Right.
You
Right.
can only do so much.
So you've built your business based on referrals,
Yes,
essentially.
yes,
That is
yes.
fantastic. I mean, right? Like
Yes.
goals for anyone, no matter what you do. Referrals are
The
goals.
best. Yes,
Yeah.
I appreciate it so much when
That's
people.
so great.
Yeah.
And so the bulk of your business, I know we've talked about, and just in being familiar and following on social, is what you consider semi-private
Yes.
sessions, right?
Yes.
So what does that mean for people that might not know?
So out of my home studio, I offer private and semi-private options. When I first started, it was a lot of privates, right?
Okay.
Building and
Yeah.
doing that one-on-one and, learning flow and different people's bodies and challenges. And making sure I'm catering, the workout to meet the goals of whoever I'm working with. So semi-privates, though, are up to 3 people. And where it's a massive benefit is one, it's a less expensive option for the client, which typically means that they can come more frequently, which typically means better results.
Right.
And really, at the end of the day, as I've transitioned my business to 97% semi-privates, people work harder. You've been in a
Good
class
call.
with me.
Yeah, they motivate each other, yeah.
When it's just me looking at you sometimes,
It's so true.
It's a little.
It is so
you're
true, though.
You know, it's
you're
just,
like, okay, if Betty next to me can do it, I can do it too. Power
right?
through,
You're
know?
kind of tired today,
in a positive way.
But someone else is pushing a little bit harder. It motivates you. And the community, you know, and that's one thing that I've wanted with this business and the extension of the app is creating a safe space and community where it's a positive experience for people. And yes, I can be a community with you, but at the same time, it's been so fun to watch people mix and some, you know, everyone's in their spots, but every week is a little different and schedules change and I'll have to flip-flop people and there's some connection with someone and
I love
or
it.
they
You hear
don't
it
know
all, I'm
or there's
sure.
a connection from a business perspective. And so, you know, that community aspect is what I love about the semi-private, just a little higher energy too than the private space.
I'm just grateful for the unique, elevated, progressive perspective you're giving females in the fitness space here. And you're such a strong figure in our community. And I feel like you're doing a great job of building the community.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, we've talked about this before. You're only one person with so much time.
Yes.
So like, I imagine all of your clients are busy people. You're a busy person. You're trying to, you know, as a business owner, one of the perks is to have a flexible schedule. So you protect your time.
Yes.
For you, what does that look like? I'm curious before I get into the app, because that's really what I really would love to dive into more. But
I think learning curves, still learning.
Right.
You know, when I first started, I remember talking to a friend in the space. She's like, at first you're going to want to take everybody and then you're going to want to, you know, and so it's just when I start to feel that heaviness of I have to do this. I don't have to do this. It's an honor.
Put
it's
yourself
a gift.
in check.
It's that put myself in check and be grateful. I step back just a little bit. And sometimes that means giving up an hour in the evenings and keeping that space, you know, open for just being at home or being at home with my husband or, you know, just normal evening versus
doing things that you want to be doing.
Yeah. As much as I love it, you know, I love being out there, but the second I start to feel that, I reevaluate. Like, what am I, you know, what part is lacking a little bit? Like, have we been really busy and I'm lacking that, you know, alone time? Is it that I'm not sleeping well enough? You know, it just takes that self-reflection and kind of looking in to see, because sometimes it's not the client or it's not the schedule. It's, you know, maybe I'm lacking in some of my own personal, you know, habits that I like to do during the week. So,
well, and you're just so in tune with your body. Like,
a lot of years.
I mean, really, truly, I feel like that's like my goal for this year is just to be more in tune with my body. And that sounds like so basic or just like,
not,
how are
though.
you not? But like, I'm not, and I won't go into detail on that, but I'm just not. And so I think, you know, like you said, putting yourself in check and kind of knowing, okay, what's up here?
Yeah.
I'm not feeling 100. What's going on?
Well, I think we're such creatures of habit. It is just so easy to keep, you know, you think about someone in a weight loss journey, and it is harder to think about changing and putting your fitness routine in and you're changing your nutrition, and it's harder to think about that than it is to just keep doing what you're doing, even though you're miserable. And you have to get to that point to where you really want to change. And but again, we're creatures of habit, so you just keep going. And you know, and that's why, you know, when we've talked previously, when you think about someone entering into a new fitness journey, if they try and do it all at once, typically we're not going to have a lot of success.
The best results,
you know,
right?
It's like you have to start making small changes along the way and make sure we're consistent with those, and then you build on. They're like habit stacking. You know, there's a ton of like great books out there on all of that. From owning a business to fitness to whatever it may be, something that you're wanting to change. You know, if you do it all at once,
it's not going to work. And that was what we've talked about, right? Just like context of like, for me, when we've talked about it, you're a routine driven person, right? As am I. And I think a lot of people can relate to that and thrive on a routine, right? It's stability, it's structure, it's predictable, it's comfort, all the things. And so, but you go through waves, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm definitely in a funk right now. But like, so the advice for a person wanting to get back on track, obviously, to your point, they're going to have to put in the work.
Absolutely.
You can't just, you know, put it on the counter and expect it to just happen every week. You have to make the time and put in the effort. But also, I like your advice about like baby steps. Like, don't try to like go full bore 5 days a week right out the gate when you haven't been working out for 5 years. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like therapy. You know, you want why was I remember looking back on that journey, like, why was I able to keep going that long? And it's because I kept getting these like light bulbs kept going off, and this connection, and this isn't you. This is an experience, and you're putting this pressure on yours. It's the same thing. It's like you want someone in their journey to make a few changes and feel better. They notice energy increase. They notice they're sleeping better. These small, teeny, tiny wins along the way. And as long as you keep highlighting those and they keep experiencing that, then we keep adding and keep going.
Makes sense.
Otherwise,
yeah.
You know?
Exactly. I know.
We fall back into our old schedule.
Right. I was talking to Michael about that actually, because we're like, okay, this is our year. We're doing
This is it.
We're doing it. Best shape ever. But not because of that, but just because you do feel better when you're more active and moving your body and all the things, right?
Right.
And so I was telling him, I'm like, I think if we worked out more, we would eat better. And he's like, no, that's where we disagree. I work out so I can eat whatever I want. I was like, no, I do feel like when you're more active, you're inclined to make better decisions, right? Because you want to like,
for most, I would think
so.
Yeah, because your energy's feeling better. So when we're not fatigued and constantly feeling tired and defeated, and you have those endorphins kicking and you are feeling better, then typically we do want to be more active, and you do want to start taking on new things like nutrition or eating better, things like that.
And it helps with all the things, sleep and energy and all the things.
Yeah, and the key with the nutrition piece is if you can get yourself to a long enough period, I mean, I think even a 2-week period is great, where you remove, like, say, maybe you don't drink for 2 weeks or, sugar or something like that. If you can keep it out and then you put it back in and then you realize how you feel, that's the power.
Oh, 100.
It does not mean that you're not going to have the candy like we just did on Saturday at a birthday. Right? And the dessert. It doesn't mean, but it just means that you have the power to recognize how you feel, and that should drive you. My goal is 80-20. We call it 80-20 or 90-10 lifestyle, where 80 to 90% of the time you're making decisions that serve your body well, and then that 10 to 20 we're having cocktails and socializing, and you're not putting that stress on yourself like, oh, I didn't follow my diet today. It just doesn't work long term. It's a lifestyle.
I agree with that. And actually Jenny Wright was on the podcast too. I think we've talked about so knowledgeable. And she said that too. She's like, give yourself grace.
Yep.
We are in this culture where it's like you have to go all in, like Whole30 was a thing, and keto and all the things. Obviously everybody's health situation and journey looks different. I recognize that. But I've cut out gluten since November.
Okay.
All my siblings have celiac disease, so they actually are allergic. Every year I get tested, and somehow I slide through. I don't have it, but I have the genes, so my kids could maybe carry it on. So it's genetic. So I'm very familiar with it all. And not to go like down this road, but I hear you on. I've had some slip ups of like having gluten here and there, and I just decided to do it because I wanted to feel better. Yeah. It's obviously genetic, and it makes me feel like crap.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So you recognize, you feel the
100%. Yeah. And then I'm like, wow.
It's not worth it.
No.
Especially,
and you're right, it's fine. Like at a part, I was at a kid's party and everybody was offered all the things, and I'm like, sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's just interesting how your body just knows.
It knows. Yeah. And that's typically when we fall out of our habitual routines and things, is when we just have too many parties or social things stacked. And that's why a lot of people fall off during the holidays, right? There's so many things going on. But again, that's that season, and the more we establish healthy habits and tools, easier it should be to get back on. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy every time. Like this holiday season, I feel like it wasn't until February. I feel like I'm still a little off this year, just a little bit.
Well, how is it already March? I'm
not sure. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. And the time change didn't help.
But
no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so there's always going to be. I guess the point is like it's never. I have so many clients sometimes that come, not so many, but the expectation of if I come in and do 10 sessions, does that equal X? And it just doesn't work that way. It's this longevity of like the effort of wanting to consistently, we get one body our entire life. It's like we take it for granted.
100%.
We beat it up a lot, especially women. I don't like my hips. I don't like my thighs. I don't like,
Right.
It's just there's so much more what we don't like, but I think sometimes just bringing it back to like, oh, like
blessed with this body.
I can walk today. You know, those are just things to check myself with sometimes where we get too caught up in the weeds.
I love
of
that.
The other stuff.
I love that. So you mentioned too the nutrition piece. That's
yes.
also something you offer your clients.
I do.
You mentioned it seems like as you've grown your business, it's more of kind of like an add-on service with some of your semi-privates, right?
Yeah, it's a key piece. I love it for myself, but I think with my background and history, for me personally, if I'm not a macro person, will I ever try it one day? Maybe. I'm not against it at all. If it works, it's like keto diet or Whole30. If that's something that sparks someone's journey and gets you going, great. And if it works for you, great. For me, I just can't get too stuck in all the exact details of everything.
Right.
And so I really enjoy the piece, and I love watching that add-in go into someone's journey and watching the body transform and seeing them make connections. So it is an add-on piece. A lot of my semi-private and private clients do it. I've had a number of 3 main nutrition mentors that I've kind of taken pieces from, and again, what feels best in my body. And I think there's so much contradictory information out there on nutrition. And what works for you might not work for me. And so, you know, I have a very, I don't want to say general, but it's like, it's a great nutrition plan for women specifically. But, you know,
love that.
Yeah. So it's
tailored, customized to each person.
And if I see something that I don't feel like is my wheelhouse, they're getting referred out to my nutrition mentor. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Yeah. Know when it's time that it's like, okay, this is maybe above me or not my specialty or what have you.
Women going into perimenopause, and, you know, those are things that sometimes nutrition and your diet, you get roadblocked a little bit.
All the things. Just all the fun things of aging as a female.
Yes.
So with that, I feel like there's been a lot of buzz lately about protein for women.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging with us here on Coffee Monday. Here's a word from our partners. Ever wonder where the gorgeous flowers from our centerpieces come from? The arrangement is styled by floral artist Darcy Hovsepian of DH Floral, and the flowers themselves are actually grown and sourced from local flower farms right here in our Central Valley, thanks to the creation of the San Joaquin Flower Collective. The San Joaquin Flower Collective is a partnership of small flower farms to provide 100% locally grown ingredients to flower collectives and flower lovers alike. As the first and only source for all locally grown flowers in the Central Valley, their biggest mission is to reduce the need for imported flowers. By streamlining the ordering process with an online shopping experience, prioritizing collaboration over competition, and raising awareness for our local flower movement, they are changing the way farm-grown flowers are bought and sold in the Central Valley. As a wholesaler or a retailer or just a flower lover yourself, you can follow along at SJ Flower Collective on Instagram for their latest happenings and fresh bloom drops. Hey coffee lovers, Ray here, and I've got some exciting news for you all. If you're anything like me, you know that a good cold beverage, whether it's iced coffee or tea or boba, can make any day better. And that's why I am thrilled to tell you about Dutch Bros Coffee's latest limited time offer, Poppin' Boba. Available now through April 30th at all Dutch Bros locations, Poppin' Boba is the perfect way to add a burst of flavor to your favorite drinks. Choose from 2 delicious flavors, vanilla honey or strawberry, and mix them into any of your favorite yummy Dutch Bros drinks. I've personally tried the Poppin' Boba Vanilla Freeze, and it's a true treat. The blend of vanilla coffee with the vanilla honey boba is divine. But that's not all. They have other flavors too, like caramel chai, the Poppin' Boba Fire Lizard Rebel, and Poppin' Boba Lemonade, each offering a unique and delicious flavor profile. So don't sleep on this offer. Head over to your nearest Dutch Bros today and treat yourself to some Poppin' Boba goodness. And follow them at Dutch Bros Fresno on Instagram for the latest updates and promos. Cheers, friends. Can we talk about that? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I know you say everybody's different. I agree.
Everyone is different. I think what's so confusing is, you know, our nutrition guidelines that the world puts out for us are so dated. And so then you have these, fitness and influencers and people with wealths of knowledge and certifications and all of the things. And, everyone is coming from a different standpoint. And so for me personally, I've kind of taken the recommendation of shooting for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Okay.
For my clients, the easiest way, that can be overwhelming to some, like, how do I get
I'd
there?
have to do the math there,
right?
But sure. Okay.
So the easiest way to think about it is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You want your goal to be 30, 30, 30 minimum. So that's a great start. That gets us to 90, right?
So if I'm talking, like, in general, I know nothing about how to measure protein, like a chicken breast.
Yes.
What is that?
They're typically 4 to 5 ounces, just shy of about 30 grams.
Okay.
So right about there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the perspective for people that just feels overwhelming, to your point.
Some people need the scale to weigh. My suggestion is always, if you need that to kind of get a visual for what it looks like, great. But then let's tuck that away and not become so obsessed with, is this exactly,
Ish.
It's not just each day, right? I'm trying to think of the book it was that I read. It's like winning, we think about winning the day, and then you think about winning the week and winning the year. And that's what we want. That's what I want my clients to feel through, is not, I failed today. I didn't fall, like, I didn't eat well today. I didn't work out today, so I failed. Well, no. Like, what did your 7 days look like? Did we get to your 3 days through the 7 and not just today? And then maybe that week, maybe you didn't. But what does the month look like? You know, so that's kind of instead of just constantly like failure of like what I didn't do today, we want to look at kind of the bigger picture. It's kind of the method that has worked best for me as well.
Right. And you obviously, your goal is to set your clients up for success, right? You don't, to your point, you can't, what's the phrase? Don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yes.
Right? Like you're not going to recommend all the things right out the gate if that doesn't work for their schedule or their lifestyle or what have you.
I know how I felt in that, where you're trying to make too many changes at once because you're desperate because you want to feel better. And I just ended up right back in the same spot, but like working through it a little bit differently.
Right.
And
so I think with that too, if you're changing too many things at once, how do you know what's actually working for you?
You really don't. Yeah, you really don't. I have a client right now. She's changed a few, all the way to like skincare. Right.
Oh, wow.
So she's having some breakouts. Now, it's really hard right now to figure out, is this part of like what she's eating, or sort of kind of have given
or
some
hormones,
yes.
or all the things.
Yeah. Right.
It's interesting.
You're right.
Yeah. So for somebody who wants to see results, I imagine this is a frequently asked question for you. Working out 1 day a week is probably not going to cut it.
It's better than nothing. But
okay.
It's not
maybe not. So tell me what your perspective is on that.
You want to think about, like, if you are someone that is not currently moving your body, or you're not, maybe you've been in a fitness routine before, you're kind of out of whack right now. With that statement, it's like something is better than nothing. Yes. But let's not settle for average also, right? Are you using that as an excuse? Well, something's better for nothing, so I walked 5 minutes. Kind of get where I'm there.
I love it. I'm all about it.
It's true. Something is better than nothing. But if you're constantly saying that and you're kind of allowing yourself to settle in that space, that's where we want to look within and check ourselves a little bit.
Love that.
But if I have a new client that's coming in that's not been consistently moving, I'm going to suggestion out of the gate is, let's start with 2 days a week, whether it doesn't have to necessarily be with me, but I'm looking for a consistent 2 days of strength training, and I'm encouraging them to at least walk or, do something that they enjoy, or a different workout or something. But 2 days of solid, good strength training. If that's consistent, my ultimate goal for women is 4.
4 days a week.
4 good days of strength training.
Amazing.
And so that's a great place, especially as we start to get older and things shift and hormones change. Strength training is so key, not just for obviously the aesthetic piece and wanting to look good and feel good, but from a hormonal perspective, maintaining muscle as we age, it starts to decline rapidly.
So much about that.
Yeah,
like down to like your skin and your skincare, on how much like even just lifting weights, strength training, as you've mentioned, like is better for everything.
It really is.
Like it maintains, like, I don't know, does it help build collagen? I don't know. There's some scientific meaning behind all the things.
The benefit of strength training is you can walk out of the gym and your body is going through a recovery phase because you've broken down muscle. So you're actually still burning and, creating muscle recovery and muscle building through that process. And so I think most women at some point in their life have been what we like call a cardio bunny, right? Where 100%. We think running and climbing stairs, and the more cardio, the better. I'll lose more fat that way.
Right.
We tend to burn muscle off when we're doing that. So my style of training, a lot of women also complain about their legs. Legs is the hardest thing for me to keep lean and toned, and so I typically incorporate it. You've gone into my classes, right? Similar style, a little different than at home, but that style of driving the heart rate up with the traditional strength training delivers good results for women. That. And so they're kind of getting cardio in there as well. If I have a client that's a runner, I'm not going to take that away from them if they like it, but if a client says, well, I'm going to run because they think they're going to burn more calories and they hate it, goes back to the mind-body connection.
Right.
You're forcing yourself to do something that you don't enjoy, which is causing distress and inflammation in your body. It's not going to be beneficial.
Right. So, and also, why do something that you dread doing all the time? You want to be able to have this be like a fun release for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like not every day we're going to, we feel like we're human, but at the end of the day, it should be something that you enjoy. And I think that would be challenging for the strength training piece if someone doesn't really like that, because that truly is beneficial for your body.
Right. You're like, even if you don't like it, you're coming.
I think it typically changes because you start to see the body shifting. And,
I bet. So you said mainly women, female clients, which is great.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of your exercises and classes and method is very tailored to the female body, which I love, obviously, because, it's different than something that maybe is a little bit more bulky. Like you're almost like, from my
carving a little bit.
Yeah. Which is obviously, who doesn't want that?
Right. I was talking to a client yesterday about it, and we were doing a different variation of lunge, and I'm like, guys, they're like, why am I so gassed today? Like, I'm like, you're not out of shape. So I'm changing it to continue to increase, you're progressing.
Yeah.
And there's only so many movements that you can do. I mean, the basics of the bicep curl, tricep, lunge, like the basics are there for a reason.
Right.
And I think the fitness industry does this money-making job of spinning things off and keeping people interested with a new style of something that is a new certification, and it's broken off with a slight twist, and it pulls people in because it's new, and that's great. Again, if that pulls someone in to start their journey, like high fitness.
Yes.
I watch so many people, that started their fitness journey, and they're that's awesome.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the basics are the basics, and they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason. And the human body responds well to the basics, right?
And I like to switch it up because I recognize I'm dealing with people that need excitement, because I need it, right?
Right.
You need different variations of things. But at the end of the day, they all have that foundational, traditional strength training and weightlifting kind of emphasis behind them.
So with that, in an industry that feels like it's fast paced, no pun intended, right? Like things are ever changing, trends are coming in and out. I know we were joking the other day about like walking, revolutionary.
Yes, I know. It's
but
the hot
all of
topic.
A sudden it's the hot topic. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a business owner and a practitioner of these things, get creative and like stay fresh? Like what does that look like for you?
To be open, right? Like we can't be closed off. Like my method is the best way, or no, that's incorrect. That's not effective. And so I think it is important to absorb new information, try new things. And like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, is the method and style that I do is just kind of a mix. I didn't create these things, but it's a mixture of different certifications and platforms and things that I've experienced that, one, I feel like have given results,
right?
Continue to give results that make my body feel good. It's not like I have this achy feeling after, but I keep doing, so it's a combination of all the things. So when it comes to new stuff, I think it's so important to be open.
Love that.
Right? Because there's a lot of creative people out there.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean, that all this new stuff is just a fad and fake and just a money maker. I mean, there's pieces of it, of things that I think are key.
Right.
So being open to experience new things and incorporate new things is kind of my motto on that, but also not getting too caught up in it in the sense that I feel like
there's trends that come and go too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Obviously.
And at the end of the day, what if I think back to like what delivers results, it goes back to the basics. But we like new things and keeping it fresh. And so that's kind of how I'll incorporate new stuff. And
right. So in that vein, you have a thriving business where you're getting referrals, but at the end of the day, you're only one person.
Yes.
Protecting your time, which I totally respect. That said, I want to talk more about the birth of your app. I think that's so cool.
The new baby.
Yes. Let's hear.
One thing I remember with my experience with Arbonne, where it's like, you'd have maybe some harder days than others than wins. And you'd think if you can just impact, I remember someone telling me, you can just create impact for one person. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 people. It doesn't matter if you're a national vice president. It doesn't matter. Like if you're creating impact for someone's life, from a fitness, nutrition standpoint, or from a business perspective, and bringing them into the business. And so that has stuck with me. And when I thought about that, I thought, yes, this is amazing. Like this business is taken off, but there's only so many hours. And I stretched myself a little thin at the beginning. And, after I kind of launched.
Started, right?
And how do I potentially create more impact with more bodies and more people, even if it's just a little bit of impact, And so that's how the app was created. To try and share the workouts and impact more people, and at a convenience factor.
Right.
Scheduling is challenging, and when you think about maybe someone that's new that's trying to get into that schedule, maybe they can't get to the gym. We've got 4 or 5 kids, and we're working, and I'm a nurse, and I'm in a funky schedule, or whatever it may be. And so giving that convenience to someone where they can do it in the convenience of their home, or they can take it to the gym if it's a gym. The app is designed to do both. But the main thing behind it was impact. Like how can I reach more people and motivate someone's fitness journey, or help them during a time when they're kind of in a funk or in a tight schedule, and how can we do that? And that's
amazing.
Where we landed. Yes.
So subscribers, people that download the app, are able to get a free trial for the first week.
7 days.
Correct? Yeah, 7 days.
And as long as they cancel before the 7, there's zero payment charge or anything.
So they can obviously get exposed to what
There's a 7-day starter program on there. Okay. So it's a great place to start. And it's designed to give people a little overview of how the workouts look. And so there's follow along videos where someone that maybe is at home but needs the motivation. It's just me, and I'm on there, and you can work along with me.
Great.
And then there's what I call short form. Those are written workouts where, say there's an exercise, reverse lunge, and someone doesn't know what that is. They can click on a video, and they'll see me performing the exercise. And so they can go through all of those before the workout starts. And so short form is just a written workout. It'll tell them how many reps they need to do and what order. And again, those instructional videos are there. So those are the ones that are easier to transfer into a gym. If someone's like, I'm here, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, right.
I want to work out with her, but I can't schedule-wise, or whatever it may be.
Right. No, that's great. Convenience is key, I feel. I mean, that's a big barrier as to why people don't 100%. Exercise more, right?
Yeah.
Or get in some sort of a routine.
I ask people when they're inquiring at my home studio.
Yeah.
I'm like, my location is out in Clovis.
Yeah.
So that is part of your experience, Good and call. I don't want you to necessarily, yes, maybe we need to settle on a time just to get you moving, and then maybe we can transfer you. But at the end of the day, like if that time, it's part of your experience. So that's why I try to be as accommodating as possible and see if things can shift to accommodate people, because that's your whole experience, is getting to me and liking your time and making it work with your schedule. If you're, worried about driving to me, it's just my body. You're stressed. It's not gonna.
Well, and right? You're like, okay, just put it out there. This is not moving.
This does not change right now. So
wow, that's a good point, though.
Yeah.
So the app gives them the convenience factor, obviously, for so many reasons: time, location, all the things. And, I would consider it to be similar, if they continue with the app, like some sort of like a membership of some sorts. We all have recurring memberships, whether it be at a gym or a streaming service or what have you.
Yeah.
So with that, though, you mentioned a newer edition of giving people the opportunity to have kind of like a one-time purchase versus the recurring. So what does that look like?
So it's funny. I was just talking to my husband, working on taxes.
All the fun stuff.
I'm like, how many subscriptions? Like, he's like, use, I think it's called Rocket Dog, and you can see like every monthly, because it's hard.
There is one. I want to do that. Is it Rocket Dog?
I think it's Rocket Dog.
I feel like I've seen ads for that. I need to do that.
And it lines up all your, so my point in bringing that up is sometimes someone doesn't want another subscription or to down, and I recognize that. So from a subscription standpoint, like you said, you get the 7-day free trial. If you want to extend, you would go either monthly or an annual, and the annual is obviously more cost effective. To try and serve in the space where maybe someone wants to experience the workouts, but they don't want the subscription. I'm working on my first one-time program, meaning I'll launch, say, it's 28 days, about a 4-week program. It would be a combination of, all of my style and some nutrition stuff in there, and it would be a one-time fee. So they can purchase the program stays with them, it's theirs to keep. It's not a subscription, it's just a one-time. So that will be something that is going to be launching through the app here soon to kind of accommodate that space and see how that takes off.
So, I mean, side note, how was starting an app?
Whew.
Right? Like, I feel like you already started your own business.
Yes.
And you're trying to uphold that. I feel like it's hard. You started another business almost. You know what I mean? That was not part of what we talked about before.
No, I know. It was a lot. Yes.
I bet.
So, yeah.
Because you have to take all the footage, right?
All the footage. And so you're, for just the short forms, videotaping every loops. So if, you're not sure bicep curl, right? You can press the video and it loops until the client stops it. So I'm not talking. But to put all of those exercises, I remember my consultant was like, just start with like 60 to 80, and you can keep building your library as you go.
Which is a lot. But then 60 to 80, that's a lot to me. I feel.
So many things out there.
Yes.
Like I said, variations of anyways, it was a lot.
It was a lot.
But they were a great team to work with, and
that's awesome.
I think if I would have tried to do it on my own, we'd still be sitting here today with no app out there.
Right? I mean, good for you for knowing.
I'm
this
I'm
going
to invest in this.
That's great.
Yeah.
So have you found you've reached women outside of the area? I love that.
I have. And again, some of them have been referrals. So you have to think about, when I decided to do this, I'm like, this is not going to be an easy task because there are so many free fitness opportunities out there, right? Like someone can go on YouTube, and I'm not giving any new information.
No,
it's the reality. So it still really comes down to why does someone want to select me? And it's typically from a referral standpoint or someone that has some connection with me or knows me, is connected, which is why the social media piece comes in so much of putting myself out there and showing my kind of goofy personality and sharing my lifestyle so that I can connect with people real, because social media can be so
curated and all the things.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Putting up some of the, these newer content videos of adding value and letting people into my life at a, protected a little bit.
Well, at a level you feel comfortable with, right?
But how else are people going to have a connection to me? And why is someone going to select me over somebody else? It's going to be because you've experienced working out with me and you refer. Or, you feel a connection to me through a post about an eating disorder or, something that's just kind of drawing you in. So how do you do that in this world with so
true,
much,
right?
And then there's so much free content out there. So I knew that going into it
and thought about that, I'm sure, and structuring it and pricing it and all the things. So, but you mentioned too, I think a huge value is the fact that they can DM you.
They can
through or not. That might not be the right term, but message you, contact you through the app, right? So what does that look like?
So if you're a subscriber, and if your one-time program would follow the same way, because it's still a piece of the app, any client has access to direct message me through the app.
Okay.
So questions, things aren't working, if something doesn't feel right, frustrations, challenges, maybe there's a modification they need that hasn't been mentioned in the video or in my notes and suggestions, whatever, anything they want, right? They have real, and it's me responding.
I love it. Yeah, not some bot or some assistant or whatever. That's awesome.
So giving that connection feel,
that's awesome.
and being able to guide someone through their fitness journey, they have access to me in that space.
Love that.
Yeah.
Tisha, this has been so great.
I have every second. Thank
me
you.
too. Ditto. And for those that want to continue listening to your story and watching all your fun content, you're active on Instagram.
I am.
TikTok.
Yes.
Go girl.
Now.
And your website has a link to your app, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's everything.
So your handle on Insta is at Tisha_Z_, right?
Correct. Yes.
So I'll obviously include all the handles, all the things, but appreciate you being here and taking the time. This has been a wealth of knowledge and a joy. So appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Feel free to rate and review this episode here and connect with us on Instagram if you have any thoughts, questions, or any guest suggestions. Thanks.